We've been following the flow of information about Jeb Bush and how he has quickly gone from being, in my mind, maybe the smarter of the Bushes, a more moderate, reasonable Republican, to someone who is completely unhinged and disconnected from so many of the obvious realities of the world we live in today. And it has now surfaced that Jeb Bush wrote in 1995 that unmarried mothers should be publicly shamed. He said that a good way to regulate, quote, irresponsible behavior of unwed mothers is to publicly shame them. This is from his 1995 book, Profiles in Character. And there's a chapter called The Restoration of Shame. And he made the case that if we bring back public humiliation, particularly of women who are mothers and single, that it could help prevent pregnancies out of wedlock. He said, quote, "One of the reasons more young women are giving birth out of wedlock and more young men are walking away from their paternal obligations is that there's no longer a stigma attached to this behavior, no reason to feel shame. Many of these young women and young men look around and see their friends engaged in the same irresponsible conduct. Their parents and neighbors have become ineffective at attaching some sense of ridicule to this behavior. There was a time when neighbors and communities would frown on out-of-wedlock births, and when public condemnation was enough of a stimulus for one to be careful." This is so damn funny. Jeb Bush's idea, right? So the science, if we look at evidence-based ways to keep families together and to prevent pregnancies that are unwanted and abortion and all this stuff, is things like sex education and access to birth control and family planning. And of course, income and education is a big factor in families staying together. That's the evidence-based side. Jeb Bush, on the other hand, was sort of reminiscing about the 50s. And by that, I don't even know if I mean the 1950s or even the 1850s. Sometimes these ideas are really retrograde, when stigma, shame, public humiliation, and ridicule were the way to impact the behaviors of individuals, widely debunked as effective for anything.
Yeah, I mean, just think about that. A young woman watching a friend of hers who happens to be a single mother being shamed and ridiculed and insulted. Does she think to herself, "Yeah, I better not let this happen to me because I'll be persecuted"? It just sounds so archaic and insane. And it seems like the more we learn about Jeb Bush, that this is the real Jeb Bush.
It's truly grotesque. I mean, it's appalling what we are learning about Jeb Bush time after time. Now, this is 20 years ago. Maybe he wouldn't stand by this anymore. Maybe in 1995, we were only 95% convinced as opposed to 100% convinced that using ridicule, shame, and public humiliation to solve societal problems is ineffective and counterproductive. But I would love to get a clarification from Jeb Bush about this.
Yeah, I really hope that this comes up during one of his interviews. I predict that it will if it goes viral.